two high school girls attach ropes to a cart so they can pull it together. If one exerts a force of 102 newtons, south 12 degrees to the west, and the other a force of 69 newtons, north 76 degrees to the west, what is their net force on the cart? Use vector components method. In order to solve this problem, we need to draw a free body diagram to visualize the problem. Then we need to use the vector components method to figure out the x and y vectors for triangle A and triangle B. For triangle A, we need to find the x and y vectors. For the x vector, we need to use the equation sine theta opposite over hypotenuse. But since we are missing the opposite value, we need to times the hypotenuse value, which is 69 newtons, by sine 76 degrees to get 69 newtons to the west, which will be our x value. And also, for the y vector, we need to use the equation cosine theta adjacent over hypotenuse. But since we are missing the adjacent value, we need to times the hypotenuse value, which is 69 newtons, by cosine 76 degrees to get 16.7 newtons to the north, which will be our y value. For triangle B, we need to find the x and y vectors. For the x vector, we need to use the equation sine theta opposite over hypotenuse. Since we are missing the opposite value, we need to times the hypotenuse value, which is 120 newtons, by sine 12 degrees to get 21.2 newtons to the west, which will be your x value. For the y vector, we need to use the equation cosine theta adjacent over hypotenuse. But also, since we are missing the adjacent value, we need to times the hypotenuse value, which is 120 newtons, by cosine 12 degrees to get 99.8 newtons to the south, which will be our y value. Once we have our values, we put them into a chart. For the x values, since they are both going towards the west, we just add them, and we get a total of 88.1 newtons to the west. But for the y value, since vector 1 is going towards the north, and vector 2 is going to the south, we have to subtract them, and we get a total of 83.1 newtons to the south. Once we get our final x and y values, we can use them to draw a right triangle to figure out the hypotenuse, which will be the value for our force net. To figure out our force net, we need to go a squared plus b squared, and then we have to square root it. So we need to go 83.1 squared plus 88.1 squared, and then square root it. And we get an answer of 121.1 newtons. But since we have to keep in mind of significant figures, we have to go to 120 newtons. And to figure out the angle of this number, we have to use tan theta opposite over adjacent. And we get an answer of 43.3 degrees. So our final answer for the force net is 120 newtons west, 43.3 degrees south.